Welcome everybody to the Synapse Philosophy Group live. I'm your doctor. I'm your host, Dr. Haig John, and I'm excited because we've come on a journey of D.D. Palmer's book he wrote in 1910, The Chiropractor's Adjuster, and we're on page 911. We're really nearly done. We're at the pathological conditions alphabetically arranged. And I'd like to talk about this. We're going to go through them. We may as well. And we've got more people signing on. I'm stoked. It's going to be a good night. Okay? So first, we've come on a really good journey. It's been when did we start this book? It might be a year and a half, okay?
Easily.
Easily of reading it. We had Dr. Alan Lichter doing some reading. I was doing some reading, and we spoke about it. We discussed it. We talked about the history of D.D. Palmer. We had Joe Foley. We talked about, chiropractic. When you were on my podcast, we talked about D.D. and the research you've done. And I have finally gotten my book. Here it is. Palmer Chiropractic Green Book's the definitive guide. I got the paper book since it was on sale. I'll save 15%. I think it is still, Joe. But I also got the paper book so I can write notes in this one for myself. And I already got some wisdom this morning, page 74. Dee talks about his spiritual friends. And who does that remind you of? Pasquale Sarasoli and his spiritual friends. So I had a great bit of inspiration already from this book, and I want to thank Joe Foley, Timothy Faulkner, and Simon Senzon for the hard work that you guys did on this one. And you've got a new one just finished. Am I correct, Joe?
Yeah, a new book's been out for about 2 weeks.
2 weeks. What's the title?
It's Forgotten History of D.D. Palmer's Disciples. So this is kind of the next segment of our historical research of tracking with new modern research abilities to see what was going on and getting rid of some of the old myths and legends and concepts that we thought were true, that some turned out to be true, but some turned out to be completely off base. So we did the article too on the 1914 moral and religious duty that just came out too. So I don't want to distract you guys from your
No.
group conversations here, but I think that 1914 article, your group is probably the only group that's really read the 1914 version of it. I sent you, John, the 1911 version with a highlighting of what's changed and what's different. And I'd be really interested in this group looking at down the road saying, what changed and what does that mean? When Didi rephrased this, what was he doing? I think you're probably the only group that would really understand and be able to comment on what's the difference between this wording and this wording. I don't think there's any other group in chiropractic that would understand and be able to comment on it.
That is
Wow,
high
that is
praise,
high
Joe. Thank you
praise.
so much.
Thank you so much and deeply honored. And I had a double awesome day because I also got my edition of
Oh, good.
Chiropractic History, the Archives and Journal of the Association of the History of Chiropractic. And your article is in here. Am I correct?
Yeah, it is. And I've got a couple of other copies of that journal. So if you know somebody that would like a copy of it, just send me an address and I'll mail them a copy of that. As an author, they send me as a member. But since I contributed and I got two articles in there, I end up with three copies. And
Nice.
I don't need three copies. So
Well, we go ahead, Alan. Let me just say one more thing is that, this group is a part of this. It's not taking us away from it. It's all a part of that. And the 1914 book we read, discussed, we've done it twice,
yeah,
each
yeah.
time taking us more than a year.
That's why that one article, I think this is the group that could truly understand here's what the 1914 version looked like, but here's this 1911 version, and it's different.
Wait.
So I've sent you a
Yeah.
Word document that I highlighted what was added, what was deleted, and what was just rephrased. And again, I think this is the group to really look at those changes and see where'd this paragraph go to. It was in the 1911 and it's not in the 1914. What does that mean? I don't think there's another group that could figure that out.
Would you mind? I'm just asking your permission. You already said it. Can I send that PDF you sent me to the group?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
We're gonna do that, and then we'll read it all. We'll read it together and break it down and discuss it like we do. How about that, everybody?
The article that's in the journal, I don't have any say over that. That's copyrighted by the
Understood.
AHC. If it were to get scanned and shared, I have no say in that. But if asked, could I give permission to share it? I can't. It's copyrighted by the AHC, but stuff gets scanned and shared all the time, and that has nothing to do with me.
Well, you sent me that PDF, and we're going to respect copyrights at the moment, and we'll ask permission if we do that. But you've got sent me something already. We'll send it around to
Yeah. What I
everybody.
sent you is a Word document.
Great.
That's my writing in it, and it was intended for this conversation. I knew that this group was going to want to compare. So when I was writing the article almost a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was like, let me do this. And I've been sitting on it for almost 2 years, waiting to say, here's the group that will be able to do something with this.
Well, we appreciate that. That accolade is, I mean, it's very humbling. Thank you. We're going to do it. We're going to have fun with it because, this is respecting where our forefathers came from. And Joe and I were talking the other day of getting to their origins, their beginning levels of thinking. And you could feel the progression of Dee Dee writing through this, 1910. You could feel the changes and nuance. You could feel the emotion coming out of it. And same with BJ's books. You could feel the emotion and the timeline where they've come from and how much work. Alan, I'm going to give you the floor. You had your hand up. I apologize.
Well, I was saying, Joe, send me the book, but send me the magazine. But I just was, are we ready to get started? I'll go on with that. That's all.
Okay. So I'm going to start on 9/11.
Well, I had
And
a
this,
story to tell first that relates to the page before we're starting on.
oh, okay, go ahead.
The page before the first article in 910 says a doctor denounces appendix carvers. We're not going to read that, but I had a story to tell. I studied with J. Clay Thompson from when I was still in school. I was taking Thompson seminars with Dr. Clay, and I called Beth Zog to verify this story before I told it tonight, make sure I had my statistics right, my story right. The Dr. Thompson, at one point when he was still at Palmer, I think he may have been an instructor already there. He one day had a severe pain in his lower right abdomen, and he went to BJ, and BJ adjusted him, and that was the end of it. Never thought anything more about it. Years later, and Beth told me this tonight, he had an obstructed bowel and he had surgery for that. And Dr. Clay told the story at seminar, and I didn't remember that part of it. I knew he had surgery. He had obstructed bowel and he had surgery for that. When he came out of the surgery, the surgeon came in to talk to him. He says, Doc, that was the most amazing thing. Your appendix was entirely encased in calcium. And Clay says, huh, I probably had appendicitis. And Jake and Dr. Palmer adjusted me, and my body reacted and sealed it all off. It turned out that he had had two appendicitis in his lifetime that Beth talked about. But that's just an amazing story about if you give the body the chance to heal, it can take care of almost anything. And
You
that's not
know,
to say you don't necessarily want to go and go to see the medical doctor if you feel you need to do that, but it's if you give the body the chance to heal first, you might be amazed at what will really happen. And that's just a great story, and I wanted to share it with everybody in relation to
that
something
is a
that
great story. And we had students in school that had those issues and was resolved. It's amazing. Since you mentioned 910, I'm going to read the last three paragraphs. One paragraph is just a sentence because it relates to chiropractors. Okay, on 910, chiropractic education and the adjusting of illiteracy found in chiropractic literature is the object of this journal. Education is the harmonious development of all our faculties. It continues through life. We may receive much from others, but that which we study out ourselves is the most serviceable. Is that he just said you got to do the work. You got to show up. You got to do the reading. You got to be a part of it and partake. Chiropractors should put out literature that is becoming, even if it is only a card. Educate, educate, educate. The most derogatory literature is that which is partly copied and partially original. The two kinds do not coalesce. They are incongruous.
Incongruous.
Some some thank us for our friendly criticism. Others as well as the one criticized should be benefited. Therefore, the chiropractor adjuster will continue to adjust all discrepancies we find. We will be pleased to receive chiropractic literature for inspection. And, when we go and we've read the chiropractor's adjuster, and now you see the things that are put out by a lot of people that we love and respect, our dear friends, are not exactly what Didi was talking about. He would have put them on to true north by his standards of what we talk about. And, it's not easy being Didi, right? He is going through reading everybody's stuff, trying to keep his brainchild together, and he looks at all these all these writings for 900 pages we've read already, and correcting their mistakes. And we're doing the almost the exact same ones today. And we have a lot of speakers in different stages quoting the stuff that DD has corrected. And I always think it's really funny because you read something that sticks out to us, but we've been using it incorrectly most of the time. DD didn't like the body being related to machinery, right? It was so much more amazing than that. You're dumbing it down. So these next few pages are symptomatology, but pathological conditions alphabetically arranged. So he gives us the condition and then the area to adjust. The nerve tracing he talks about earlier is very likely where he's done this. Would you guys agree where that's come from? I would imagine so. This is what we base innate adjusting on, actually. All right. Anybody have any insights or want to say anything? I'm going to start this page. Let's rock and roll. Page 911, the following list of diseases is not registered in the index as it is useless to tabulate them twice. This book is written upon the same economical plan as that upon which chiropractic was built, and by the same mind. And you know what? The economy of energy is a lot of, I think, chiropractic, and where the body doesn't have to work as hard, is more at ease, less chances of dis-ease. In teaching, I do not give the number of the vertebra to be adjusted for several reasons. First, I prefer the student to learn to locate impingements by using chiropractic principles. Second, while I have given quite a list of illustrative diseases in which the vertebra to be adjusted is mentioned by number, the list is by no means complete. Besides other omissions, it lacks the name and description of about 4/5 of the fever recognized by pathologists. The new chiropractic practitioner who wishes to make a great spread by enumerating in the booklet the numerous diseases he treats, adjusts in parentheses, can copy this list and add them and others too numerous to mention. Third, the practitioner may be called to relieve some pathological condition which I may not mention, or which is known by some other name than the one given. Fourth, I have elsewhere shown that no two persons are alike, either in their osseous, nervous, vascular, muscular, or lymphatic makeup. Variances are found frequently with no definitive or reliable rule can be formulated. At times, the exception seems to be the rule. For example, headache may be caused by atlas, third cervical, fifth or 12th dorsal subluxation. Therefore, there can be no key which will unlock all pathological conditions, although the number of the vertebra usually responsible for this possible pathological condition should be given. Cases will arise in which the displaced vertebra will either will be either one above or one below the one mentioned. The practitioner will find it more reliable and expeditious to locate the impingement by the regional method than by the number of the vertebra. That's important. You know, I think I'm going to just stop there a moment. What about specificity? Where everybody gets very hung up on definitions of specificity, right? Because the adjustment is specific or it's nothing. He just said regional.
Well, he's talking about the symptomology, maybe regional. He's not necessarily talking about the adjustment.
No, he's talking
The
about the
adjustment, he's saying, I can't tell you
read
what
that
you
again,
can't. No, he's saying you can't put one number for a vertebra on for any particular symptom. It may be something else in a different area, but
right?
the adjustment, you still want to be very specific about what you found as the one vertebra that needed to be adjusted or for whatever you were by the criteria you're using. That it may not be you may think that C1 is always going to be the headache, but what if it's sphenoid? It's and I find sphenoid frequently once I learned that I could adjust it.
Absolutely. Okay, fifth, regional localization of lesions is important and educative. The vertebra herein mentioned as the upper one to be adjusted for each disease given will be found to be generally reliable, although occasional exceptions will occur. The directions given are based upon the results obtained in practice of 25 years, beginning in 1895, many of
85.
them occurring while practicing magnetic healing. Remember, these adjustments are given for disease, not for isolated symptoms. It's important. The explanatory remarks that accompany the description of each disease are of necessity brief, being only such as seen necessary for illustration. It is presumed that
Instruction.
each what's that for
Necessary
instruction?
for
Excuse me.
instructions.
For instruction, it is presumed that each student or practitioner has an anatomy and dictionary at hand. I advise each reader to make himself or herself familiar with the principles and philosophy of the science so that he or she will be able to make adjustments with accuracy and precision. Therefore, demonstrating that chiropractic is a science. Future anatomies will be is that right? Future anatomies will be obligated to designate the origin of functions and point out where pressure may occur to cause impingement upon the nerves. So that goes into the specificity part, right? Absolutely specificity. This is a scientific action. We what did Dr. Sid say? He used to say I forget how he used to say it, man. I've heard him say it 1,000 times on stage. A specific scientific adjustment, something like that. Anyway, what do you guys think?
John, I'd point out that he said how many years of experience? 20,
5.
20 years of
Was it
experience.
25 or 28?
So
Yeah,
1895, and that's books in 1910. Just bring up, he's including his magnetic years.
that's what he said.
In his experience time,
1885.
it isn't just the chiropractic years. His experience goes back further than 1895.
And he was in practice, and he mentioned 1885. And he is in practice serving people and seeing the nuances, taking that as a professional, scientifically, and developing the science that we are talking about right now. Would you agree, Joe?
Yeah, there was a research has shown there was a longer transition. The magnetic into chiropractic was longer than most of us that are principal straight chiropractors want to think that we're looking at his later stuff and thinking that was there in the beginning, and that's what we're realizing. The slope was a longer slope from magnetic into what we know as Palmer chiropractic was a longer slope than what we grasped initially, or would like to think that it was happened quicker It was a longer time, and even the comment earlier by, I think by Alan about the body being a machine, that was a part of the early stuff. The early stuff, he did repeatedly say the man was a machine and a fine watch and fine tuning it, very much like the AT still, which all goes back to the spiritualist concepts. Neither one of those are original to AT still. Those are spiritualist concepts of the man being machine. Indeed, he advanced beyond that, and that's what we're seeing in these books, in his later writings, but the earlier writings were more mechanistic in the beginning.
Awesome. Thank you for that insight. Absolutely. Anybody else before we start getting into, the way I think we should just read them, right? And we'll go through these symptoms. I know we're at the end. I want to get to the science, the page 913 as well. Anybody have anything they want to share right now before we start that?
I just want to acknowledge something that here we are in 1910 when women were second class citizens still. And in here, he's addressing women as part of this profession. And that I think and that's always been part of our profession. And I think that's important for us in this group to acknowledge that for that, that's all.
Yeah,
Nothing else to
yeah.
say there. It's
Well, himself and herself,
yeah.
is a serious. It crosses all boundaries. Absolutely.
I mean, it's
Innate doesn't
amazing how many
matter.
women were in the early classes at the schools.
Innate has no sex. Innate has no male. Innate is innate. It has no skin color. Has no national origin. It has no sex. It's innate expression through the physical being. There's if you recognize that, then nothing else can separate us. We're all the same.
Absolutely.
In all aspects of our life, and that's something we all need to be taking into account these days when things are so rough in the world.
Well, as Sigafus used to say, all that's fictitious. Wouldn't know it's happening if you didn't turn on the TV or scroll through Facebook or whatever, right? Because we have to focus on what's important. It's caring for the people. Everything is to take us off balance. Every woman I know is doing probably better than I do. So, I don't know where all this stuff has come from in our current life. In the following directions, the word vertebra is omitted. The reader will understand that is a vertebra, not nerve. They are that are adjusted. Relief being given to the nerve next to and below the vertebra adjusted. Abscess, a localized collection of pus, coagulated. I had to do it that way. Lymph due to inflammation. Adjust the vertebra which impinges upon the nerve that reaches the inflamed part. A sensitive, inflamed nerve can be traced by palpation from the lesion to the point of its exit from the spinal column. If the offending vertebra is either the cervical or dorsal region, rack it towards the opposite side. If in the lumbar region, towards the side in which the lesion exists. The 12th dorsal vertebra is an exception to this rule. It should be adjusted in the same manner as the lumbar vertebra. The reason for this difference is given elsewhere. Diseases or abnormal condition is in any part of the body which will be adjusted according to the general rule. And I'll have to say, I have had somebody's abscessed. They had a big boil on their spine. I adjusted them around on the back, and it exploded after, not right at the adjustment, after they got off the table. It wasn't fun for anybody. But there was a lot of material in there, and I must have adjusted the right way. Where Dee Dee, I was waiting to read this one. I haven't read it yet. So I've experienced that on the table pretty much. Interesting. Aching, a continuous fixed pain. For a general aching throughout the body, adjust the sixth dorsal. It's a very odd, just I feel achy. Hit the sixth, right? Adjust the sixth dorsal vertebra. That's pretty interesting. I don't know if it's in my correlates that I use to find subluxations, but anybody have any insights? Acne, pimples, usually occurring on the face as a result of sexual orgasm induced by friction of the genitals. Adjust the second dorsal and advise the patient to cease all lascivious thinking and excitement. I barely got through it. you know, Didi always amazes. He really does. I love it. He's talking to teen boys here. It's what's happening. Okay. Acromatitis, is that what it is? Inflammation of the nipple. Adjust the third dorsal.
That
Acromegalia.
related to the acne?
That might be. Might be. Acromegalia. Chronic enlargement of the bones and soft parts of the hands, foot, and face. Also enlarged pituitary body, which is attached to the brain by a pedicle. Adjust the 12th dorsal. Interesting on that one. I get a lot of lower thoracic come up in my office. L1, and it's only been the past few years. Maybe since the whatever we call it these days. But I think that's fairly interesting.
Center
Acromegaly.
place was a common in Didi's writings to hit center place. That was that lower dorsal. That was a frequent spot that Didi would adjust that area, and I think those in practice see that as an area I see it often. Also, I see that as a common space, and I think that Didi was adjusting that area a lot for as he's doing his laundry list of conditions to adjust. That's a frequent spot that he's suggesting that should be checked and adjusted.
Is that right? Okay. Good. I haven't read that anywhere. Where does that come up? In the writing you have.
When you do the Merrick system stuff. So if they're looking at kidney place or center place, that's a common spot that's listed, and it breaks down basically into that lower thoracic region.
I want to ask you about the Merrick system. Do you know any of the history of that?
A little bit. There's some writings in the AHC journal about people trying to figure out where did it start and what's it based on,
Right.
and it's very vague. There's not a lot of specificity to say we understand who originated it, who laid out these places. There's some of it going back into some nerve tracing and back into, frankly, osteopathy. They called it center places. So there's some osteopathic that they were doing a similar thing, and they called them center places.
Okay.
And so these are there seems to be a relationship there that I don't really know a definitive history on it. Some have looked at it, and I think there's an AHC article. Maybe John Wolfe wrote something about it a couple of years ago. Some details.
And you mentioned Didi. I mean, was the Merrick chart around in Didi's time or?
It was. He
Okay.
used him and BJ early on used kidney place and center place and stomach place, and that is as a place that, as they were describing, again, it's therapeutic. It's this condition.
Yeah.
Where are you adjusting this condition? So there's always that blend of chiropractic is non-therapeutic. We're adjusting subluxations, and nerve tracing was finding the specificity of where. But you just read a bunch of conditions listing where do you adjust for this condition. So it's not as pure as we like it to be. Sometimes there is absolutely a condition based concepts that are even in the 1910 writings, that here's the illness, where do you adjust for that? And the Merrick system goes back into that. It was very early. The Merrick system was an early concept.
My
But we
thoughts.
also read in just the last page, we said the vertebra herein mentioned as the proper to be adjusted for each disease given will be found to be generally reliable, although occasionally exceptions will occur. He's saying this is not, you got to find where the interference is.
Yeah.
He's saying that from the beginning. Say this is more or less, we see this a lot, but you got to be sure you're in the right place. It could be, and he said, it could be for this or that. It could be anywhere up and down this whole entire area.
And that's why palpation is so important. Being able to use your hands. And but giving a general idea is what he's. I was thinking that exact point before we started earlier, and you know what he's done so much in this is raise up the practitioner, giving you vocabulary to have a communication with anyone in any field really, and sounding educated in it. Um, is this a set in stone? Do this, do that. Like Alan just said, it's not the only guidebook. You also have to have your own skill set in doing this, but giving a general idea when someone comes in with you know acne, and you just have
That
to.
one's a stretch.
It gives you the guidebook. I'm
I
gonna
would
read.
agree with Alan's assessment to say, okay, if
Yeah.
someone comes in with this condition, you look and say, let's investigate the lower thoracic. Let's at least look there. If there's nothing there, there's nothing there. You look and figure out where there is something to care for. But that's kind of a starting point that you want to scrutinize that area. If you find something, you have some resurgence that you're probably in the right place, and that's probably related, but it's not a definitive to say this condition. You don't palpate, you don't investigate, you just thrust into that spot. Is um, again,
Well,
when you look at some of the other stuff, you'll see they were doing that, but at this point, he's starting to certainly evolve by that. And by 1914, he's much further evolved from that.
I had
I think
Dr.
one of
Brian
our
Hooker on my
challenges is some.
podcast with, he wrote Vaxxed or Unvaxxed with RFK. And when measles was huge and they wanted to, they're re-pushing that vaccine. And so we had the measles section. And I read it during our podcast. And, he said, adjust the seventh dorsal. Well, very likely that's going to the spleen. That is an immune response. It's probably inflamed. Adjust that, keep a clear pathway, and keep moving on. It's not such a big deal. Where here it's been blown out of proportion in every single way possible, creating horrible poisons to put in people's body. Where Dee spent a page on it and said, oh, let's move on. Just the seventh dorsal, keep going, right? Okay.
We have to be careful that so many people in our profession do get lost in do this, do that, because it's the simple way out. And I'm glad those of us here at least and propound, you got to look at the bigger picture. It's not just six for that, seven for this one, Atlas for the other one. It isn't always that simple.
Absolutely. The Science of Chiropractic, Its Principles and Adjustments by Dr. Dee Palmer, discoverer and developer of chiropractic, and B.J. Palmer, D.C., PSC, Davenport, Iowa, USA. I'm assuming this might be also in 1906. Yeah, I see it right below. The above is a reproduction of the title page of a book compiled and copyrighted by B.J. Palmer in 1906. It may be observed that I was given due credit of being the discoverer and developer of chiropractic. BJ is the author of that title page, which states that D.D. Palmer and B.J. Palmer were responsible for its makeup and its publication. The contexts are nearly all from my pen. I've talked about that many times, and I think we've talked about it, Joe, and I've talked about it with Simon as well. What was Dee? What was his writing in 1906? Because there's is it folklore that BJ took his writings, Dee's writings. He said, I'm not ready to publish it yet, and BJ did it anyway. What do you
They
think?
were planning from the late 1905 to write a book. Dee participated, and we have writings from him from late 1905 into early 1906 saying, I've got 200 pages of the new book together. My son, basically wants to make it bigger, and I'm trying to keep it down to 200 pages. And then, they had the falling out. Dee goes to court in early spring of 1906, and their relationship falls apart, and Dee goes off to Oklahoma, and BJ now does what he wants to do. He's got the text, the books, articles that his father had written, and he over several months added pictures and images and made it into a much larger volume. The book, if you have an original 1906, it lists Dee as the primary author and BJ as the secondary author. So there is, without question, Dee was involved in the beginning of this, and I think Simon analyzed. They're not identified. So which article in 1906 is Dee, which is one that BJ, Simon, in doing what Simon's capable of doing, has been able to identify and say, here's the ones that were Dee articles that were just his writing style, his content, and here's ones that were likely BJ one done. Just the clarification is simply Dee had no say in the final version. When he left and went to Oklahoma, he was done, and BJ finished and brought it to press. Dee simply had no say in the content anymore, and it would have been a different book if Dee was there. It would have been a different book, but BJ finished it. He added content to it. But there's absolutely Dee Palmer writings in it, and some of it is easy. It was in the Chiropractor in 1904. There was already articles that we could see,
Yeah.
and it was reproduced. So those are easy to identify. That's the same article Dee wrote it in 1904. It's in the 1906 book. Dee wrote that.
Well, that's where we've talked about a couple of times, where are we going next? Because the rest of this, we're not going to read every single one of these symptoms and diseases, but I think 1906 would be a good place to go, and start reading our next book. Okay. I mean, we could get it all now. It's digitized, so everybody can get a copy. I have a copy, but I think that's the next place to go, you guys. What do you think? Everybody feel good about that?
Good possibility, sure.
I think that's a good one. And then it gives us some, some fill in maybe. I'm going to the next page, and I'm not going to read all of these symptoms over here, but I'm going to read, he has another title page in here. The Science of Chiropractic, Its Principles and Philosophies by B.J. Palmer, D.C., Ph.C. Heads my article on page 179 of 5 lines. Then follows my written statement almost verbatim as I wrote it. Even mentions the name of the clinic patient and the date. His statement and mine, which is represented as his, dis- disagreeing materially, all credit is taken unto himself. He has mutilated my writings and misrepresented facts, laying himself liable to the United States courts for $100 fine for each article of mine appropriated by him, for which see the index for copyright. So he's saying it right there. He's taken my book, my writings. On page 917 is a copy of the man and his name, whom B.J. Palmer in 1906 was the discoverer and developer of chiropractic. But the entire book has been torn to pieces. Much has been cut and mutilated in order to plagiarize that which belongs to another. By so doing, he has been able to replace principle with principle.
That's
So,
principal PLE with principal PAL.
why do you
It's
think he uses that?
I mean, obviously, principle is again, he's Dee was upset with the book being done. I would be shocked if Dee made any of the income from the sale of that book. So I think that's a
right.
component of him saying, I didn't think it was ready. We shouldn't have done it. Chiropractic had advanced further as he was involved with it in the beginning. He left and gave up control of it. BJ finished it. BJ sold it, and BJ collected the money from the sales. And I don't think Dee got his cut out of the royalties.
It
Yeah, so
sounds that way.
principal PLE being Dee says my work is the principles of chiropractic,
Right.
and it was turned over for the sake of principal money, PAL principal.
Okay. Again, you feel the passion of Dee. There's a picture of the illustration he was talking about on page 917. Dr. D.D. Palmer, discoverer and developer of chiropractic. The above is copied from The Science of Chiropractic, published and copyrighted by B.J. Palmer, 1906. It illustrates Dr. D.D. Palmer as the discoverer and developer of chiropractic. Then now we go into more symptoms through here. I mean, there's a lot here, and I think it's worth a read to look through this stuff because it's fun and it's part of our history. But we don't need to read 65 pages of symptom and adjust this or what have you, okay? Localization cerebellum. So there's a lot through here. And we've done DD justice um so much through here that we can skip a little bit. Now, at the end of this, page 971 is tone again. And he's mentioned tone. There's been numerous chapters named tone. And I have all my notes and post-its on here. Half of them say tone because I'd like to really, I don't think we really have a concept as a general rule in chiropractic of what DD was talking about. Everybody's confused. I think we've worked it out pretty well in here, and I'm very honored with that. But I think that's where we're going to pick up next week. Okay? We've had a great session today. I appreciate everybody on here. And you guys that, you're on here for the first time or back again, I really am happy to have you here. And Joe, I'm really stoked that you came. We're doing this every Tuesday, 8 p.m. And insights are so nice to have because, like I say, this is history. We're creating history right now. And in 100 years, when someone comes to listen, they don't really know where to go. They don't have the books or the green books or what have you. This will be a digitized version of chiropractic, its philosophy. If I'm sure the technology's there to just take our voices out, discussing and just have the reading. I'm about to da 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 da. We're releasing our drip of D.D. Palmer's 1914. I had a professional actor and read 1914 a lot better than I can. And so we're going to sort of just start putting those pieces out. And I think even chapter one should be little bits at a time, not the whole chapter at a time. It needs to be digested in small bites. So that's going to be coming out really soon. I'm very happy about that. I'm really excited. And we're going to do a bunch of more green books as well because I also feel people are reading less. We may be the 1% of living chiropractors right now on this screen that has gone through this much of 1910. Let's be
You're
real.
generous. You're being generous.
I'm being generous. 1% of the 1%. I mean, you're absolutely right about that. So we have to get into it as a profession, inspiring the young ones. I have, an associate. He's not with me anymore because I said every week you have to get into, I need green books read every morning. That's what I was taught. We need to discuss them. We need to break it down. Listen to the podcast. We're going to talk about philosophy and our history. He thought I was joking. I wasn't joking. Now he's gone. I'm not going to take half-ass. We've got to create chiropractors that are out to change the world and to understand chiropractic. And it takes work, time, effort, repetition, just like everything else. So this is important, and it's important for the profession, and it's important for the denizens of the earth. God's people need chiropractic. So I'm honored that all of you are here and all the people that have been on here in the past because I get so much out of this and I really appreciate you all. That's my 2 cents. All right, everybody. Same bat time, same adjustment channel. Tuesday, 8 p.m. next week, and we're going to be on page 971.
Alan, make sure you send
P8.
me an address. Alan, send me your address, a mailing address.
I'll do that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
send me a mailing address. I don't need 3 copies of the journal, so happy to send it to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, bless you guys. Have a great night. Good night.